In the far reaches of the Arctic, where biting winds sculpt the landscape and silence reigns over vast frozen expanses, an extraordinary scene has unfolded, a testament to nature's resilience and adaptability in the face of change. In late summer 2021, Russian photographer Dmitry Koch set out for Kolyuchin Island, a remote outpost in the Chukchi Sea, bearing witness to a phenomenon that would soon capture the attention of the world. Here, the island's weathered, abandoned Soviet-era buildings, once bustling with human activity 3 decades ago, have found new tenants. Over 20 polar bears, the iconic predators of the North. These dilapidated structures, battered by seasons of icy winds and relentless cold, now serve as unlikely refuges. Through Koch's lens, we see polar bears peering curiously through cracked windows, lumbering across sagging porches, and resting in the shelter of crumbling walls. The images evoke a sense of wonder, but also a sober realization. These majestic creatures are adapting, making use of human detritus as their environment transforms around them. The story of polar bears on Kolyuchin Island is not an isolated occurrence. Just a few years prior, in February 2019, another dramatic event unfolded on the Russian archipelago of Novaya Zemlya. There, at least 52 polar bears descended upon the settlement of Belushia Guba, prompting local authorities to declare a state of emergency. Residents found themselves face to face with these powerful animals as they ventured into homes, schools, and public buildings, searching for food in a landscape where their natural prey had become scarce. Such incidents are emblematic of a broader, troubling trend. The Arctic is warming at a rate more than twice the global average, and the consequences are profound. Sea ice, once a reliable platform for hunting seals, is vanishing with alarming speed. For polar bears, whose survival depends on access to this ice, the loss is catastrophic. Forced to travel greater distances and expend more energy, many bears are now driven to seek alternative sources of nourishment, often bringing them into closer contact with human settlements. On Kolyuchin Island, the abandoned station stands as a relic of the Cold War era, its empty rooms and rusted equipment a silent witness to decades of change. For the bears, these buildings offer more than shelter. They provide respite from the harshest elements, and sometimes a chance encounter with food scraps left behind by previous inhabitants or washed ashore. Koch's photographs reveal the ingenuity of these Arctic predators, their ability to exploit new environments, even as their traditional habitat disappears beneath their paws. But this adaptation comes at a price. The presence of polar bears in human structures highlights a growing conflict between wildlife and people in the north. In Belushia Guba, authorities struggled to balance the safety of residents with the need to protect a species that is increasingly vulnerable. Attempts to scare bears away with vehicles and dogs were often unsuccessful. As climate change accelerates, such confrontations are likely to become more frequent, raising complex questions about coexistence and conservation. Polar bears are uniquely equipped to survive in the extreme cold. Their thick fur, insulating fat layer, and powerful limbs make them formidable hunters on ice. Yet, these very adaptations become liabilities when the ice recedes. On land, food sources are limited. Bears may scavenge for bird eggs, vegetation, or human refuse, but these cannot replace the high-fat diet of seals that sustains them through the long, dark Arctic winters. The images from Kolyuchin Island are both haunting and hopeful. They remind us of the ingenuity of wild creatures faced with adversity, but also of the fragility of the balance they depend on. The abandoned buildings, once symbols of human ambition in the Arctic, now serve as monuments to a changing world, one where the boundaries between nature and civilization are increasingly blurred. Efforts to conserve polar bears have become more urgent in recent years. Scientists monitor populations, track movements, and study health indicators, seeking to understand how these animals will fare as their environment continues to transform. International agreements aim to protect critical habitats and regulate hunting, while local communities grapple with the realities of living alongside one of the world's most powerful carnivores. Yet the challenges are immense. the melting of the Arctic ice is driven by forces far beyond the control of those who share the land with polar bears. Fossil fuel emissions, rising global temperatures, and shifting weather patterns all contribute to the decline. In some areas, bears have become thinner, reproduction rates have dropped, and cube survival is threatened. The sight of a polar bear wandering through an abandoned weather station is a stark reminder of the urgency of the crisis. For researchers and conservationists, stories like those from Aleutian Island and Novaya Zemlya offer valuable insights. They reveal how polar bears are responding to environmental pressures and how human infrastructure can inadvertently provide temporary sanctuary. But they also underscore the need for global action to slow the pace of climate change, preserve sea ice, and ensure that future generations of bears can thrive in their native habitat. As the seasons turn and the Arctic landscape continues its relentless transformation, the fate of the polar bear hangs in the balance. The images from Koch's expedition invite us to reflect on our own relationship with the natural world. What responsibilities do we bear for the creatures whose lives are shaped by our actions? How can we safeguard the wild spaces that are vital not only to polar bears, but to the health of the planet itself? In the end, the story of polar bears on Aleutian Island is about more than adaptation. It is a call to awareness. It asks us to consider the impacts of climate change not as distant abstractions, but as urgent realities affecting life in some of the planet's most remote and beautiful places. It reminds us that resilience has limits, and that the time to act is now. The bears, gazing out from broken windows and resting in the shadows of forgotten buildings, are both survivors and sentinels. Their presence is a message, written across the ice and stone of the Arctic. Nature will find a way, but only if we are willing to help. As we look to the future, let these extraordinary moments inspire us to protect, to preserve, and to imagine a world where wildness endures, even amidst the remnants of human ambition.